As of the posting of this video and the launch of Diablo 4's expansion, I will be live for over 24 hours straight for the launch of this expansion. There are also free cosmetics you can earn by watching the live stream that will activate October 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific. Now let's get into the class tier list for me, which is based upon the most important thing, in my opinion, with this expansion, which is having fun with the game. So what class is going to be the most fun to play? Now I'm going to start with Rogue, because I actually think the Rogue's going to be a pretty fun class to play this season and this launch, in my personal opinion. It's got some new additions to it. However, the primary reason for me is there is a new, spin to win Rogue build that is out there that allows you to throw a whole bunch of knives around. Kind of reminds me of the Demon Hunter volley a little bit from Diablo 3, as a matter of fact. I think Rogue's going to be quite enjoyable. I'm not putting it at S tier for reasons that I'm going to state here in just a moment, because we are kind of comparing classes here, but I do believe that the Rogue is going to be very fun with that new build. It's been fun pretty much in every single season. The Rogue is a fast class, both in terms of leveling, has a variety. You can play melee, you can play it range, and has a good variety of builds. So I actually think Rogue's going to be a pretty fun class going into Season 6 expansion. Now let's talk about one I don't think is going to be that fun and has gotten hit a little bit in terms of power structure. Typically, one of the strongest, if not the strongest class in every single game, but levels very slowly. I'm, of course, speaking about the Barbarian. I'm putting the Barbarian, in my opinion, in D tier this time. It is going to be a slow leveling class. Overpowered is not completely busted right now, so you're not going to be one-shotting things with Hoda. There are other classes that are stronger, and very typically, Barbarian's strength comes in the fact that it's like a melee Giga Chad that is almost always stronger than every other class, but that might not be the case. Even if you look at people who are like Barb-only players like Rob, for instance, even he's saying not the strongest class this season. So for me, I think Barbarian might actually have a season in which it's not that enjoyable to play. So I'm going to be putting it in D tier from an enjoyability standpoint. Now let's talk about one that's a class that I have played basically every single season in a row. Just like Rob with the Barb, it's me with the Druid. I have continually played the Druid all the time. Now, previously, in most of the seasons, there was the 17 damage meme of Druids. People would talk about Druid kind of sucks to level, which is true, etc. But then for a while, they went from D tier enjoyability to they were pretty fun, because we had the Nature's Fury build, and there's a new Cataclysm. Now, while the Cataclysm ring combo stays where you can kind of do the infinite Cataclysm and all that, they actually recently fixed in the patch what they called a bug, which was making Nature's Fury proc more times than normal. So that cool build is no longer as cool, so it's going to drop it down a tier for me. However, I think it still maintains in B tier, at least of enjoyability. You might say, oh, it's Druid, probably C or D tier, but I actually think it's B tier because they got a recent buff. We tested with the Season 6 PTR, and then they got another buff since the PTR with one thing specifically, which is the Companion Druid style. The Companion Druid is actually going to be pretty fun. Both the Necromancer minions as well as the Druid Companions got an additional multiplier built within their kit. And the Companion Druid was actually still pretty good when I tested in Season 6 PTR. We were able to clear most things using the Companion Druid. So I actually think if you're someone who's been looking forward to a companion, summon a bunch of wolves Druid, now you can get more wolves than ever. It's like 6, 7, 8, 9. I forget exactly how many the cap is on these on the wolves, but you can get a lot of them. There's also a new aspect that turns your ravens into thunder. Don't know how good that's going to be. Thunder Raven doesn't seem to be popping off as much as I was kind of hoping it was from the little bit of messing around we did with it. But the wolves Companion Druid are pretty nutty single target damage, and also thematically just really fun and enjoyable. So I think since this is a fun tier list, I think it's easily B. You could argue it's A tier, but I do think it's at a minimum B tier for me today. Okay, now the Sorceress. For the Sorceress, I kind of want to drop it to C tier. The reason is my understanding is the Lightning Spirit is not as good as it used to be, as well as there isn't really a ton of changes. There's not a lot of new things. And Sorceress has had a few seasons of being peak really good. So a lot of people have probably already played the Sorceress and got the opportunity to kind of have that power moment with the mage. I think there's an arguable point for it to be B tier because it's been pretty consistent, and you probably, if you enjoyed the Sorceress before, I don't know why you wouldn't enjoy the Sorceress now. It's kind of the same thing. But the Lightning Spear is not as strong as it used to be because one of the passives basically had a fixer like Nature's Fury. So I think it's arguable it's C or B tier. I think we'll probably put it in B tier just to be more fair with it. But for me, I think it's probably going to be a B tier. I don't see too many new things that are coming up with the sorceress that makes me excited to want to play it again. I did play it last season when I was playing. It's actually the class that we did hardcore Lilith on as well, and now the Flame Shield like Immortal build, even though it wasn't really that fun of a build, that's been nerfed as well. So there's been a couple things that like I really enjoyed about the sorceress that just isn't really there anymore. Though Incinerate is around these days, and that's kind of a fun build. So I would say B tier for enjoyability. Okay, now the Necromancer. Now, the Necromancer for me was going to be a C or a D tier, but recently they made a change in which they basically buffed the minions, just like the Companion Druid got. They got another multiplier they announced during the campfire chat, which means minion builds should be a little bit more viable than they were previously looking like, where they were looking pretty gutted in the early access. And they kind of came out and said, okay, we understand Companion Druids, Necromancer minions aren't looking so good. So I would say B once again, but they actually have good non-minion based builds that are like top of Max Rose tier charts right now. For instance, you have the, the Blood and the Bone Spirit. So I think they have multiple good builds that you can play in multiple different styles, and the minions might actually be enjoyable to use. So I think I'm going to put it up there in A tier because of the variety of play styles you can play with Necromancer that should be at a minimum viable. Keep in mind when we're talking about this tier list here, this is for fun, and Torment 1 has all of the content available. So even if you want to play like an off-meta build that's maybe not necessarily the strongest build in the game, there are a lot of viable builds. I mean, you can basically put any item together. You can clear Torment 1 with like items that don't even synergize Legendary with almost random pieces. So I really think if you min-max one build, you'll be able to push, even if it's not a meta build. I don't think you really have to get trapped into that. And the tier 4 is supposed to be like aspirational content that only gives you quantity in terms of items. It's not an improved quality or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about if you really, really want to play like a very specific Golem build or something Necromancer, and you're like, but I want to, make sure I'm not missing out on content. You won't miss out on anything. I'm definitely pushing people more and more in the direction of just enjoying your time, playing what you want to play, regardless of if it's meta or not. I mean, I say this having played Druid for basically 5 seasons straight, so I kind of put my money where my mouth is on that one. But for me, it's going to be A tier because of the variety of builds that are available and the variety of builds that are actually quite good as well. Now we're going to be put into, I think you're going to be able to guess this one. Okay, what's the last class? It's Spiritborn. Where do I think Spiritborn is going to be in terms of enjoyability? Man, this is a hard one, right? It's going to be S tier. And the reason for this is, you've already heard it before. People say it's like a better melee rogue. You heard the Green Monk meme and you heard the Druid meme. I don't think it's anything like a Druid. Spiritborn actually feels very unique to me. I do understand what people are saying when they say that it feels a little bit like a melee rogue because of the speed at which it transitions mobility-wise. And I think if you're somebody who likes to warp from pack to pack and go very fast, I think the Spiritborn is 100% going to be something you enjoy, but also it has many top tier builds right now. You have the Jaguar Ego build. You've got the Centipede build. I actually haven't seen anyone really do the Gorilla build. So if you're someone, again, that likes to do off meta stuff, maybe you can be the guy that figures out the Thorns and make the Thorns like Gorilla build work. And it's one of the first classes where like, other than Barbarian Thorns to be fair, but one of the first classes that defenses is really scaling its offenses too with Gorilla. So if you want to try something different, you could do the Gorilla build, but arguably all 3 of the others, you got Ego, Jaguar, and Centipede, all of these are like triple S, top tier builds doing absolutely ridiculous damage, one-shotting and everything. So if you enjoy being overpowered from a fun perspective, it's going to be S tier. On top of it, it's the new class. I guarantee you haven't played it before, so it's going to be new for you if you're somebody who's played all the other classes. On top of it, just really actually being fun and smooth to play. I know it's not a Paladin. People complain they wanted a Paladin, and that Spiritborn's a little bit weird fitting with Diablo. But honestly, the class is just super enjoyable to play. I had a great time playing it. I like the basic attack spamming build, and I like the Centipede build. It's one of the first times where a basic only build is actually kind of popping off too. So for that reason, Spiritborn has variety, it has speed, it has the new factor, and it's actually strong. So there's a lot of reasons stacking up as to why I believe Spiritborn is S tier for enjoyability. That's going to be the tier list, boys. Thanks for watching. Do not forget, we are live right now as of the posting this video. Come on by, ask your questions. I had the chance to play the early access, so I can answer any non-spoiler questions. Still not going to do any campaign spoilers or anything until the game's already out and people have time to play it. At that point, we'll be able to answer any question for you. But love you all. Thanks for watching this. I really hope you all have a good time with the expansion. I enjoyed my playthrough of it. I'm going to enjoy the 24-hour live stream we're doing now. Come get your Twitch drops, and I'll see you there.